Very good afternoon, students. This is Dr. P. Chandana working as an associate professor in the Department of CSC, IARE. So I am here with the subject of computer organization and architecture. So already as a part of this particular subject, we have been seeing about the basic things of a computers in the context of introduction to computer organization. So as a part of this introduction to computer organization, in the past session, we have been discussed about the things like what are the basics. So we have defined this computer organization as two parts. One with the context of basics and the other one with the interfacing or interaction. So as a part of basics, we have been defined with the context of definition, followed by functional units and their organizations. And as a part of interfacing, we have to understand the basic concepts of programming languages, assembly languages. So let us see clearly what exactly we have discussed. So as a part of introduction, we have started with the basics of a computers, followed by functional units introduction, followed by functional units organization, so as a part of this, we have learnt about control unit, CPU, memory unit, and IO unit. So as a part of just a definition, we have been learned all these things. Now, the other part of this is interfacing. So how exactly the end user can interact with the system. To understand this, we have to go for a context of basic things like programming languages. So what is the importance of programming language in order to handle the computer organization as a first one. Next one is how it is internally represented by means of assembly notations. And third one is how exactly the data is represented. So data representation is also one of the concepts we have to understand. Now, if at all I am saying that it is converted to intermediate medium, how is it possible? What are the different instructions we have? So we will see about the instruction set design or different instruction sets. So these are the basic concepts which we'll be learning as a second half. As a part of first part of the first part of computer organization, we have learned all these things. And now we are going for the next part, that is programming notations, followed by assembly notations, data representation formats, as well as instruction set architectures. So let us see. So assembly language instructions, these are the things we have been going to discuss in today's session. So as a part of the basic previous session, we have been gone for the context of programming language and its importance, how it has been connected with the compiler so that you are getting the correct results, or what are the programs you are writing is providing you the exact results. So with the help of assembly language notations and mission notations, we are saying that what are the programs you are writing that is executed perfectly. So here is the chapter outline which you have already seen for the past session and for today's session also. So programming languages we have discussed in the past session. Now we are going to discuss about these three sessions. So we start with the first one. So assembly languages, as the name it is suggested, assembly language is nothing but it is the intermediate notation or intermediate language between hardware or mission language and human interpretable format, which is also called as programming languages, or else we can also call this as a high level language. So we are saying it as intermediate language or intermediate communication between mission language and the high level language. Now, for example, there are two persons, X1 and X2. One person is writing here, one person is speaking in Tamil, and the other person is speaking in Hindi. Or else let us consider this as Telugu, and the other person is speaking in Hindi. So now these two persons does not know any other language except this language. For example, X1 is only familiar with Telugu and X2 is only familiar with Hindi. Now if at all these two people want to communicate with each other, how is it possible? So we have to include one more person, say why. This person is acting as a translator. Acting as a translator. What is the job of him? He has to get the instructions for these people, provide this to the other person. What are the instructions or what are the communication is this fellow is making? This will be translated and converted in Hindi and will presented to the second person. Similarly, vice versa. So what happens here? If at all this person does not know Telugu or Hindi, then it is not possible for him to convert. What is the objective of this person? He has to only translate, or he has a communication, he act as a communication medium between X1 person and the X2 person. Now, in this particular process, we have to see some of the issues. Now, this person is mandatory to know both the languages. Next, what are the conventions you have in this language that should be followed exactly? So, we have to call about with the conventions. Conventions in the sense, for example, in Telugu or Hindi, we'll be calling it a grammatical mistakes, and all these things are called as conventions. So, like grammar, we can also call it as a conventions. So, conventions is mandatory. We'll call it as a semantics. Syntax. We'll call it as a syntax. And next, first thing is mistakes of a grammar. If the grammar is not proper, then this fellow also, if he doesn't know the grammar properly, obviously, he cannot convert it directly. So this is a basic problem. Next one is, what is the meaning of the data he is providing? What is the meaning? What is a task he has been, what is a statement he has been presented? That meaning should be entirely converted into the other notation. So, meaning of a statement or meaning of instruction. So this is called as semantics. So these two are the basic essential components which you have to understand. Next, apart from this, what is the purpose of the statement? Why he is making it a translation for this person? He want to provide a communication. So purpose is also one of the important things. Purpose or a objective is also one of the important things you have to consider. Apart from this, we need to follow one more thing, that in what format you are presenting. Are you just like the telling, or you are expressing the things with respect to body language or all? That is also one of the format. So presentation. So these are the 4 basic things you have to understand while providing the translation. The same application is applied in assembly language notation also. So we are saying that high level language is X1. Mission language is X2. In order to act as intermediate between these two, we are using assembly language. And we are calling this person as Y. If at all he has to communicate with these two, first he has to understand the meaning. First he has to understand what is the purpose, what is the meaning, what is the syntax or grammatical mistakes, and apart from this, how to present it. So these are the 4 essential things he has to consider. So the same application we are applying for the example, real example, and we are applying the same to the assembly notations. So as a part of this, we will be understanding the assembly language with respect to attributes. So with respect to attributes, so what is the importance of assembly language? We are just converting, or we are just acting as a medium to handle the communication between high level language and the mission level language. To present it properly, we need to understand the syntax, semantics of the corresponding conventions, either in mission language or high level language. Now, what are the operations you are performing? They are having some specific objectives. So we are calling them as assembly language attributes. The attributes of the assembly language is dependent purely on what is the objective it is intended for, what type of operations it is intended for. So objective and function both are important for handling the assembly language attribute. Basing on this purpose, the data and functionality is also mandatory. So because of this reason, it is divided into 4 basic aspects. What is the instruction types? what is the data types, what is the addressing modes, and what are the instruction formats. So let us see in detail about each and every operations. Now, instruction types. So I set the objective. So basing on the assembly notations also, we are performing the task of a same operation of high level language. We are converting them to mission level language. Once you understood the meaning, you have to perform the conversion as it is. So in this context, we are saying that instruction types which you are saying, the data which you are trying to do or supposed to do should possess some unique functionality. In order to understand that, we are going for 3 types of instructions. What are they? First one is data transfer instructions. That means move the data. Movement of data or move the data. Second one is data operations. That means arithmetic or logic operations. Next one is program control. So what is a program? How you are controlling. For example, you are writing for loops. You are writing do while loops. You are writing while loops. You are writing some statements like sum is equals to sum plus I. So what are the meaning of this? That is explained in the program control. So let us see in detail what exactly each and every task is doing. So basically it is intended with the looping structures. So these are the 3 basic operations we are performing. So as we said earlier, assembly language is not only converting, but it is also defined with respect to certain operations. If at all I want to perform some operation, they have some objectives and functions. As a part of this, we start with the first one, that is instruction types. Instruction types can be divided into 3 types. What are they? Data types, data transfer operations, data operations, data transfer instructions, as well as program control instructions. So let us see in detail about each and every case. So load data from memory. So in the context of this data transfer operations, we are focusing only on the movement of data. So in the first of operational concepts, we have been learned that data is loaded from memory to accumulator or register, or data is loaded from register to memory or accumulator to memory. So these things can be considered as a shifting as well as moving operations. Shifting as well as moving operations. So set of some operations over here is nothing but data loading from memory to microprocessor. Memory to microprocessor. Store data from microprocessor into memory. So microprocessor into memory. Move data within microprocessor. That means register to register transfers. Register to register transfers. Input data to microprocessor. So you're giving register to accumulator. So these are the set of operations we are having. Next one is output data from microprocessor to register. Similarly, accumulator to register. So these are the set of operations which can be performed as a context of data handling operations or data transferring operations. The objective here is to understand only transferring of the instructions or transferring of the data. Transferring of data from one location to another location. We are not bothered about where to store the data or how to store the data. We are bothered about movement of data only. Next one is data operation. So as a part of this, as a name it is suggested, data operation is involved with the 3 basic things. One is arithmetic operations. Second one is logic operations. And third one is shift operations. As a context of this arithmetic instructions, we will be learning about addition, simple arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, remainder, and if at all any other things are there like mod operator or all, these things can be explained. As a part of logic instructions, we will be understanding the context of logical operations like AND, or, NOT. Apart from this, XOR operations, masking operations, etc. Masking operations, etc. And next term is shift operations. So shifting operations in the sense, we are just shifting one bit right, one bit left. Set of such instructions. Such instructions are left shift, right shift, and circular shift. left shift, right shift, and circular shift. So next one is data type. So these are the intended only for performing the operation. So if I'm writing C is equals to A plus B or B equals to B plus C, it has to perform the operations. If I'm writing A and B, it has to perform the operations. If I'm writing left shift R, left shift R, here R is consisting some value 1010 for example. So it is consisting some value left shift R. So left shift R means it is shifting towards the left. So what happens here? So 10, this is R, given value is 1010. Now it has been shifted towards left. That means movement is towards left. So this will become the value as 010. The last will be appended with the external 0. So this will become the value. So this is for the value 10. This will become 5. So the movement is towards the left. So such kind of operations are called as shift instructions. Next one is data types. So as a name it suggests, data type is nothing but what type of data we are manipulating. Here we have said that it is addition, arithmetic operation or whatever it is, we are performing the operations. But what is the value which is supposed to carry in A or B? So what is the value which is supposed to carry in C? So how exactly these operations are performed? So all these things are also mandatory. So what type of data you are performing the operations is also mandatory. Because of that reason, you have to understand a context of data type. So what is a presentation? What is a purpose? What is the syntax? And what is the semantics? So in order to understand this, we'll go for the data types. Data types, as a name it is suggested, a general classification of data. We'll be having generally 3 classifications of data. First one is numeric. Second one is binary. So first one is numeric. Second one is Boolean. Third one is purely character based. So in the characters, we have a combinations of different formats like ASCII format, Unicode format, EDBC, EDB, DIC format, etc. In the Boolean context, we'll be understanding whether true or false, yes or no, 1 or 0. So this can be excluded because of the binary representations. We can exclude this and we can make it as true or false or yes or no. Numeric value, it is composed of decimal representation as well as floating point representation. So integer format is represented as decimal. Next one is called as floating point. Floating values are generally represented in the form of precisions like 0.006 or as we can write 2.465. The decimal value will be represented as only numeric values, that is either 2 or 4, only single digit value will be represented. Next one is program control instructions. As a name it is suggested, controlling of a program. For example, let us consider the statement for I is equals to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. I am writing the instruction as sum is equals to sum plus sum plus I. Next one is I am just closing the loop. So what happens here? How many times I will execute? I will execute from 0 to 5 and sum will be executing up to 0 to 5. So initially sum is equals to 0. So this is continued for the looping structure with iterations of I equals to 0, I is equals to 1, I is equal to 2, I is equal to 3, I is equals to 4, I is equals to 5. So for all these things, we have to execute the same loop. So initially sum will be 0. So sum will be 0. Second one, we will be having sum will be already initiated with 0. Now the increment has happened. So sum will be 1. Next 2. Next to 3. Next to 4. So these are the 5 times you are getting the data. Now what happens if it is reached 5? We are saying it is less than 5. So once it reaches 5, what happens? Control will come out from this and go for the last statement or the next statement of the for loop. It does not go inside the loop. It just comes out of the loop and get into the next statement of the loop. Now, this initiations can happen by understanding the human perception of a high level language. We can easily say this. But System is purely ones and zeros. Computer is purely ones and zeros. In that cases, it is not possible for them to understand. It is not possible for the machine to understand. For this reason, we will be going for a special mnemonics called as jumping branching loops. So for handling this kind of looping structures, we will be using jump or branch. The statements which we'll be using is jump or branch statements. Now, in some cases, this is for the general example of a loops. Now, in some cases, we need to write a hefty program or we need to write a lengthy program. Instead of writing the entire lengthy program, what we'll do, we'll divide into chunks. And we'll divide the chunks and we'll be calling them as procedures, or we'll be calling them as functions in a C program, or methods in Java, or methods in Python. So why you're using that kind of concepts? Because in order to avoid the consistency, or in order to have the problem, in order to reduce the space of our program, we are defining the tasks as an internal task and we are trying to use it whenever it is required. I will just call up whenever it is required. So this is a better and a very optimized solution for any kind of programmer. So in such cases, we are writing a program to handle the logic. We are writing a functional programs to handle the methods. Now, how come the system knows it? How does the system knows it? So here we need to consider something context, some basic concepts called as subroutines and the procedures. Subroutines and procedures are the cases where a system or where a computer can call up the methods or functions whenever it is required, whenever it is invoked. And next one is if at all any delays are happened, if at all any operations have been delayed. For example, I am waiting for input. I have written C is equals to A plus B. It asked me to enter the input A and B and I am waiting for the input. So what happened here? Until user is giving the input, we cannot move further. This is one case. Second case is if at all I am working on the program, computer got hanged. So in that case, what happens? You have to wait for the computer to get restart, then it has to initiate the task. So two operations we need to perform. One thing is problem created by the user, problem generated by the hardware. So these are the two cases where the delays can happen. So such kind of cases are called as interrupts. Interrupts are of two types. One is software interrupt and hardware interrupt. So in our case, what is the example? I am waiting, the system is waiting for my resource. That means whenever I give the input, then only it starts the operation. So I am just waiting for the input. So in that case, what happens? So it is a hardware interrupt because iBio device is a hardware unit. It is waiting for the resource to complete the task. So this is generated by the hardware interrupt. So unless and until I provide the information, you cannot operate. This is the interrupt made by the hardware device. Next, come to the software. So I am trying to execute or I am trying to type that program, but it is not getting executed or not getting printed or not getting typed on the machine. System got hanged. So in such cases, it has been generated because of the internal errors or internal program problems. So that case is called as software interrupts. So these are the two basic interrupts. We have the performance. So we have the we have different interrupts to handle the problems. Next one is problems which is created by the errors or problems which is generated by means of the errors in the program. So such cases are called as exceptions and traps. In general, we'll be calling this as a errors. So how to handle the errors? For example, if the system got hanged, what we will be doing? Control Alt Delete will be pressing. If that also fails, what happens? What we will do? Simply switch off the system and we restart the machine. So that is the exact solution we already have. But if at all program is having an error and we didn't able to find the logic, then we have a context called as exceptions and traps. So this is called error handling mechanism. Error handling operations. Exceptions and traps are nothing, but if anything goes on, failed, then you have to catch it and we should not stop the execution of a loop. So the examples of this is divide by zero error. divide by 0 error. Because if at all I'm writing a statement like this, C equals to A by B. The value of A is equals to 10, B is equals to 0. Now, if at all you give the statement in mathematics, what happens? If at all anything by 0 will be infinity. Now, if the infinity is there, we don't have any representation for infinity in computers. What happens? Loop will be going on executing. So this is really absurd. So what the thing you can do, if such cases have been generated, then you can break that particular loop and go for the next statement. So such kind of error handling mechanisms are called as exceptions and traps. So these are the two basic things you have to understand for handling the programs. So these are the different tasks or the different operations that can handle the program control executions. So this is about the program control instructions. So now, so here is the examples for arithmetic assembly language instructions, assembly language attributes. Now, if you observe this, the basic idea here is to understand assembly language. What is the importance of assembly language? How it can help the computers to understand the operations. So we are saying that it has been acting as a medium for high level and the low level languages. High level and the low level languages. Now, when I am trying to convert the extensions from these two persons or these two extensions, I need to understand the conventions of the mission as well as the high level language. Then I need to understand the meanings, what exactly the program instruction is intended for. And I need to understand the syntax, for what purpose it is intended for, what is the operations, am I giving the correct name or not. So that is also syntax. Next one is what purpose it is intended for. These are the 4 basic things which you have to see. So basing on these things or these particular aspects, we have been saying that assembly language is having some attributes to understand basing on the data and its functionality. So basing on the functionality of a program or functionality of a task, it is divided into 4 basic operations or 4 basic attributes. First one is instruction types. Second one is data types. Third one is addressing modes, and fourth one is instruction formats. So as a part of instruction types, we have again the classification. Basing on the data we are doing, what is the operation you are doing. If at all I am intended for the operations of transfers or movements, then we'll be calling it the data transfer operation. The second one is data operation with respect to the task of handling arithmetic and logic operations and shift operations as well. Finally, program control to understand the looping structures. So here is the example of a data transfer instructions where you can have the movement between microprocessor to memory, memory to microprocessor by using load and shift, or by loading and data movement by means of storing data followed by moving the data, and data operation with respect to arithmetic and logic operations. So these are the 3 different instructions that can be handled in data operations. Apart from this, data types. So types of a data with respect to handling of information. So what type of data you're trying to implement for, or what type of data you're trying to invoke for. So that case has been considered with this. And in this case, we have 3 classifications for the data types. First one is numeric data type. Second one is Boolean data type, and third one is ASCII or a simple character format. Next one is program control instructions, where you have been considering with the case of understanding how exactly a program is getting executed. So in this context, we have to see about if at all error has happened, how to handle that. If at all any program with the functions or any lengthy programs are there, how can you manipulate so that it is executed in a faster manner by means of subroutines and procedures. And next one is looping structures by means of branch and jump instructions. Apart from this, you have to understand, for example, if a program has generated any error, how to handle that. To get that, we have 2 forms of interrupts. One is hardware interrupt and the other one is software interrupt. So in this aspect, we have been understanding the context of handling of operations with respect to program control instructions. Next one is as addressing modes. So we have done for today's session with the instruction types, data types. Now we are left with these 2 context. So let us see the addressing modes. Now, to explain the addressing modes, let us have a small example in C program which you already implemented. Now I am saying that value of A is equals to 10. What is the meaning of this? In memory location, there is some location in which I am holding the value of A. Now let us have the address of this as 1024. Now, how can I call up this particular address? How to call this address? What is the data provided in that address? How I can understand these things? For this particular notations, we'll be understanding the addressing modes. That means, what is the format of representing the data using data types? How it can handle the data by using instruction types? Where it can be located or where it can be located is constructed by means of addressing modes. And how that data is represented is constructed in instruction formats. Presentation, semantics, syntax and convention. So we have to understand all these things. So for what type of data you are performing, the operations are presented in data types. How the data is presented, what format it is represented, that is considered in instruction types. Where it is located, how to locate that, it is explained using addressing modes. And finally, instructions, which how the data is represented is considered in the instruction formats. So in this case, we are just considering the example where I am considering one location. In that location, I am saying that A is equals to 10. So initially, this is located as A. Located as A. The data in that value is 10. Now, in C program, we will be using a context called as pointers. What is the use of a pointer? It is used to locate the data with the help of its address than the data value. So in the pointers, we have two operations, that is call by value call by address. Call by value and call by address. So in this case, what happens? The call by value, what I am doing? I am getting the data by means of star A. And here I am getting the data in the means of n percent A. What is the difference between these two? Here we'll get the data. Here we'll get the address. Okay. So here what is the intention? We don't know what exactly the value of 1024 is having. But I am processing the location of this 1024 and it is holding the value of data 10. So this is very secure when compared with this. In this case, more duplications can be possible. So here here star of A is mandatory and which is called as A. So star of A means the data at that particular location. We give like this. Then 1024 is processing with a value of 10. So in this way, we are presenting the values by means of our pointers. So this is a key part where you have been understood about the pointers or where you can understand easily about the addressing modes. So how do I locate this? If I know the address, I can directly trace it off. If I don't know the address, then how can I trace it? So these are the two examples which you are familiar with. Now let us consider some examples. So here I am saying that there is some memory location. The address is 1024. Data is 10. Data is 10. Now, I have been said that call by value, call by reference. So, call by value, call by address. And I said that 1024 location is represented as well as 10 is also represented. Now, we can have one more examples where indirect access is possible. For example, I don't know the address of this location, but I know the location of another address, that is 1010, or else let us consider 136. This is address location where I know already. So what is the key idea behind this is, when you don't know how to trace the address, try to pick some address from that place, try to access the original value. So that kind of addressing specifications are also possible. This mode is called as indirect addressing mode. Indirect addressing mode. And this mode is called as direct addressing mode. Which means that I know the location and I can simply trace the data. The second one is, I don't know the location, but I still want to trace my original data. So for this, what I am doing, I am referring at one point. From there, I'm referring with some other point. From there, I'm getting the original value. So something like a treasure hunt which you are making. This kind of concept is called as indirect addressing mode. We have so many other classifications for this. So we'll see this in the next session. So this is just an idea about the addressing modes. And when it comes to the instruction formats, how do you represent the data? So you are saying that you are giving C is equals to A plus B. Now how it is represented is the major concern. So I'm writing this code as add A comma B. For example, let us consider the case where I'm writing A plus B plus C. In how many ways can we write this? A plus B plus C, or else A plus B plus C. This is 1, this is 2, or else I can write A plus B is equals to D, D plus C. Okay, or else I can write B plus C is equals to D, A plus D. So the conventions which you're trying to follow is different, but the meaning is same. Instruction format also represents the same concept. So what is the key idea behind this is, in how many ways can you have the same operations in different formats, in different executions. So it depends on the computers and how the instructions have been designed, or how the instruction set is defined, or how the computation space is defined. So basing on the computer specifications, you need to follow different conventions to execute the program. So we are considering C is equals to A plus B. So I can write the same statement as add of A comma B, or I can write the same statement as add of A comma B comma C, or I can write the statement as move A, move B, add B, or else I can write move A, add B. So 1, 2 and 3. So depends on the instruction space. For example, if the pen is compatible with one refill, we can fit only with that particular refill. If the pen is not compatible with any other forms of refill, then it is not possible to write it or make use of this particular pen. Similarly, when you have some conventions that are followed in computers, according to that conventions only, you can execute the program. This is the basic idea of the instruction format. So you don't mind of how many times you can represent, but still the context is in what is the convention of a computer is existing. Basing on that, how can you reduce the space, reduce the complexity so that your program can easily execute with the intended operation. This is a key idea behind instruction format. So these are the things you will be learning for the context of assembly language attributes. So for today's session, we have been discussed the basic concepts of instruction types and data types. So we are left with the two more other attributes in the assembly language. What is addressing modes and the instruction formats. So we'll see these two things in the next session. So if you have the things which have been basic in the assembly language attributes, we have to understand is what is a format, what is the data, what is the data you're trying to process, where you can locate the data, and which formats of the executions it is possible. For understanding this, we'll be going for the instruction types and different forms of instruction types basing on the functionalities. What is the operation you're doing? What is the transferring performance you are doing? What is the program control logics you are performing? So basing on this also, we can handle the functionality of the program also depends on the data specifications. So these are called as instruction types. And next one is addressing modes. So this is about for today's session. And tomorrow in the next session, we'll be discussing about the addressing modes, instruction sets, and we'll be discussing about instruction formats. Thank you very much.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.